I know the time will come when we welcome everyone, yeah. Even the young and the old. We're here to soothe your soul.
So today I'm going to be talking about the Esoteric 12 and how it relates to everything, how it's timeless, how it's an ageless teaching, wisdom that's been passed down from generation to generation. So the Esoteric 12 obviously refers to the zodiac ultimately, and the number 12 and its significance in all the religious and spiritual teachings and why it keeps appearing everywhere. So it comes to a point where it's no longer a coincidence. So the number 12 and its significance in world religious and spiritual teachings is the syncretic truth hidden in its symbolic and allegorical representation. And you'll see what I mean by that. So 12 in Judaism and Christianity. So according to the Old Testament, Judah had 12 sons. Jacob also had 12 sons, and which resulted in the formation of the tribe of Israel. And the Hebrew scriptures records the adoption of the Babylonian astrology, because when we talk about Judaism, you're also talking about Babylonian astrology, which is where the founders of these monotheistic religions took their teachings from. Ultimately, if you actually do your research and see where these institutionalized religions that are used as a form of mass mind control to disempower, but using the ancient wisdom, but making it and twisting it to disempower the people, to put ultimately a middleman between you and the divine, which we all have direct access to. So, Judaism repeatedly, Jacob had 12 sons who went on to procreate the 12 tribes of Israel, God's chosen people, right? God being the sun with the 12 divisions. So, early folklore, born stories of the founding of Judah and Israel were written and edited by later Hebrew scribes into a story of 12 judges. The story is told in the biblical book of Judges also. This is more today of an overview, really, of what this knowledge is about. So you can look at the 12 tribes, or 12 sons of Jacob. Right, on the top left, you've got, not the greatest font to use, but if you can make it out, it's Naveen, and then we have Simeon, Levi, Judah, Lions of Judah. You see, I don't know if some of you have heard of the Lions of Judah. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, and Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. So looking at some of this, you can actually see one symbol that's very, well, it's exactly like Libra, ultimately, the tribe of Dan. So you can look at the, Librans. But, symbols are just there to just represent the same thing in different ways. So this is a lovely picture, The Last Supper, by Leonardo da Vinci. Again, you have the conservative Christians also differ on this. They say that Jesus' 12 disciples represent the 12 tribes of Israel, but that's more of the Judaic belief. But it doesn't matter because it's still 12, ultimately. It comes back to that number. And the number 12 still persists. So if we take Jesus as representing the sun, and his 12 disciples or tribes stand for the 12 signs of the zodiac. It's the same thing. It's just the same representation, just given to you in a different story, wrapped in a different package. You have the 12 apostles or the 12 disciples. Peter. Have a guess what Peter is. Aries. Because of his character. He was very forthcoming. He was a fiery character in the biblical stories. So he represented Aries ultimately. And then you go down. Other people have different interpretations of who these characters represented in the Bible. But if you start to read the Bible with these characters in mind that represent the zodiac, you get a bit of a clearer picture of what the Bible's actually talking about. I don't want to go into Revelations because that's more of a physiological thing. But it gives you the idea. 12 in Islam. Again, they took on the same Judaic format. And also the Quran says God appointed 12 leaders to the people of Israel. Israel is also mentioned in the Quran. And they tell a slightly odd story which states that God and the angels divided Israel into 12 distinct tribes. Pretty much the same thing. But the people asked for water so Moses was told to strike a rock with his staff. This piece of magic resulted in 12 rivers springing from the rock. And each tribe knew where to get its own water. And this odd sort of division of land and people is purely mythical. Nowhere are there 12 rivers from a single place. So, you could do the math yourself. So, in Shia Islam, I was raised as a Shia Muslim. They have the 12 Imams. Now, these were actual people, but again, why the emphasis on the 12 again? They again recycling the same thing, and Islam being the newest out of all the religions. And you have it in Shia Islam, the Alawite and the Alavi, and according to the theology of the 12 Imams are exemplary human individuals who not only rule over the community with justice, but also are able to keep and interpret Sharia and the esoteric meaning of the Quran. Why the word esoteric? Right? There is more depth to when you read these books. The 12 Imams, together with the Prophet Muhammad and his daughter Fatima Zahra, make up the 14 infallible according to the Shia Islam. The way I look at it, my interpretation, Muhammad is the sun, Fatima is the moon. Because you get the moon and the sun in the astrological zodiac wheel as well when you're doing a birth chart. They're very significant luminaries. You got 12 in Buddhism. So again, here are the various deities in Buddhism that also are representing the same essential thing. The reason I'm drilling this is because look at how many of them there are in different parts of the world, and it's still you still get this number 12 and these 12 deities, these 12 gods. So you get heaven, sun, Dharma. I'm reading from the bottom now, and I'll come back all the way up. Lord Diva, fire, the underworld. Underworld is always represented by Scorpio. Earth, moon, wealth, wind, water, and the last, demons. I mean, look at also these representations, because ultimately, the zodiac is our inner zodiac. It's not only the body, which I'll go into later, but it's also psychology. Ultimately, these things represent parts of our psyche, or archetypes of our psyche. That's my interpretation of what ultimately comprises the conscious and the unconscious. Okay, I should have read from this list, but ultimately this gives you a bit of more of a clearer. So Bontam, Brahma, because they've taken, the Buddhism has taken it from the Hindu pantheon as well. And here you have heaven, Deva, east Lord of Deva, west water Deva, north, south, the directions fire, southwest demons, northeast Dharma, wind, sun, moon, earth. So yeah, deities of the 12 directions in Japanese esoteric Buddhism, Mikyo, including the 4 directions and 4 semi-directions. So we also get the compass involved as well in this sort of, and it's an inner compass. That's what the zodiac is, ultimately. If you look at it, there's a compass for our physical world, but there's also a compass for us to navigate ourselves through this reality that we've come to experience. So, Deva is a Sanskrit term meaning God, deity, or celestial being. It is rendered as 10 in Japan, which literally means heaven or celestial. The Deva are deities borrowed from Hindu mythology and adopted into Chinese and Japanese Buddhism as guardians of the monasteries of esoteric Buddhism. They appear frequently in Japanese mandalas among the 12 Bontan and the Tashakutan. Indra serve in the highest position, also known as the 12 gods protecting the world. Most of you know this, the 12 Roman gods of the pantheon. Here they are again. This is the altar of the 12 gods at Gabi, Italy. And if you look on the sides, I'm not sure if it's very clear on here, but you can see the crab, Cancer. You can see the zodiac around where the gods are, and each god represents parts of those signs. And then obviously later on we had Christianity come in, and so Caesar changed and altered the Christian teachings and incorporated the Roman pantheon within it. But you'll see again, it's the same. That's why the Bible was rewritten so many times and edited. So you have obviously Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Aphrodite, Ares, Apollo, Artemis, Athena, Hermes, and Dionysus. So yeah, it's interesting. I thought I'll pull this up. They comprise 6 of the children of the Titans Cronus and Gaia, and 6 of the children of Zeus. So they're split into two sixes. And that is of the earth, and Zeus is of the sky. So this is always this relation between earth and sky and how both of them are intrinsically linked. So why 12? I said this already. The zodiac. That's why. So astropsychology. So astrology represents the summation of all the physical, psychological knowledge of antiquity. Carl Jung, famous psychologist who's contributed so much to our development and understanding our own selves. And he even saw the significance of this. He goes on to say, as we all know, science began with the stars, and mankind discovered in them the dominance of the unconscious, the gods, as well as the curious psychological qualities of the zodiac, a complete projected theory of human character. So, what is the unconscious, ultimately? What would anybody's guess be? Anybody? Thoughts? Higher self. So, connection to the divine. Yeah, ultimately. The infinite, what we call the infinite, the all. Thing is, we personify God in these spiritual it works for a lot of people, and whatever works. I'm not making judgments, but ultimately, how can you define the infinite? It's beyond language. It's beyond labels. We use these things to try and define it, define God or define the infinite. But ultimately, we cannot define it. And that's what makes it divine. That's what makes it so mysterious and so beautiful. It can be felt, it can be experienced directly, but you can't put it into words. And love is one of those feelings. I don't call it an emotion. I think it's a feeling. And a feeling is very distinct from an emotion. And when you feel love, you feel that infinite presence that goes beyond words, as you all know. Poets and artists have all attempted it, and they've failed miserably. Some of them will come close, but yep. He says also, we can see this most clearly if we look at the heavenly constellations, which originally chaotic forms were organized through the projection of images. This explains the influence of the stars as asserted by astrologers. These influences are nothing but unconscious, introspective perceptions of the activity of the collective unconscious. So in a way, they're archetypes of the collective. Unconscious because most people are unconscious as well. I mean, he's labeled it as unconscious. There's two kind of different labels to that word unconscious, because he's the connection to the divine, as we mentioned, but there's also people are walking around unconscious of themselves, of their bodies, of their minds, and giving away their power without knowing that they have all the power within them. Oscar Wilde, a man's destiny, they say, is written in the stars. Back in those days, by the way, when they say man, it referred to both men and women. Nowadays, it's all politically correct. So, just to put that little caveat in there. So, yeah, a man's destiny, they say, is written in the stars. All he'll ever do, all he'll ever love, all he'll ever be. If this be true, as I now suppose it must, only one question remains. Who does the writing? Who's writing it? Who's writing your life? Because we come into the world with programs. We're programmed from a very young age, and these programs run. And we're not taught in school about psychology. We're not taught ancient Toltec wisdom, for example. That there is a parasitical mind that gives you negative chatter, inner chatter, puts yourself down, makes you feel depressed, doesn't give you any energy. There's that voice talks about how you relate to other people, how other people perceive you. Obviously, all these things, superego, which Freud has gone into, the voice of the collective. But are these things actually serving us? Is that mind that we have serving us what happens to the natural mind as we were children? Because it was very, very strong in creativity and imagination. And they bank on us losing that. And it can be regained at any time. You just have to tap into it and remember, because we all have it. We're all children, ultimately. And when we go past language, it's all feeling anyway. Ultimately, it's all what's felt between us when we communicate and when we're in each other's presence. And that's what's so beautiful. Sometimes language is not even needed. Some of the symbols as well, because symbols speak a lot. And these are alchemical symbols. So at the top left, you have the sun. Then you have Mercury. Interesting, it's got the devil's horns, hasn't it? Mercury. Mercury is also known as the messenger. And if you go back far enough into pagan traditions, the god Pan had horns. He wasn't a devil. That's why we get pantheon. Pan is overarching, that word. Even the word expand, expanse, pan is always there. in our language.
Moses portrayed with horns.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, again, Pan. You get Pan references in Moses. Yeah, thanks for that. You also have Alexander the Great. If you look at some of the coins of Alexander the Great, you also see him with horns. You know, some say it's Capricorn or Capricornian, but you know, the horns are, how do you say? It represents the dualistic nature of the right and the left hemispheres. When you have both horns, it means you are balanced in your feminine and in your masculine principles, the creative and the logical side. And that's what part of our way of progressing in our individual journeys to individualize is to have balance in these two hemispheres, you know, and within ourselves. Then you have Earth. Funny how we always see the cross on Earth. You know, that also refers to the Christian cross. Very ancient, these symbols. The moon, which is more of a recent addition, according to Jason Brashears and a few other researchers who have found that the moon hasn't always been the moon was always, was it the moon? The moon was a new addition, from what I remember. Or the way it is now anyway, the phases and so on. Then you have Mars. Looks a bit like the male symbol as well. Mars energy. Always referred to, Mars rules over Aries. So they go, those two the fiery planet and the fiery sign. Jupiter, the benevolent one. Saturn, the cheeky, naughty one that causes trouble. Uranus, but also wise as well, Saturn. Very wise. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. If anybody wants to kind of look into more about astropsychology, if you go on Michael Tsarian's website, you will find an article purely all about all this stuff. So, speaking of Michael Tsarian, he says, it is not the planetary bodies or the physical constellations that affect personality and destiny. It is more likely that the symbols representing them are responsible. Alternatively, one can look to the light emanations from heavenly bodies for the connection, or to the subtle fields known as the morphogenetic fields for the answer, in our opinion. The 12 symbols, which represent the signs of the zodiac, are not incidental or arbitrary. They were selected purposefully because they represent the fundamental states of consciousness. The same goes for the 22 major arcana of the tarot. One does well to think of them as keys unlocking psychic mysteries. So, use the birth charts. Know thyself, as Plato says. Use the birth charts. Use the zodiac to help you navigate yourself, know yourself better. But also part of that is also to incorporate all the signs into your personality, because these are qualities. Each one has a quality. The sun is in the center because we all have to become like the sun, whole, complete, lit up, life-giving. The Earth Mother can't grow life without the sun. So they're both life-giving in a sense. Know that the philosopher has power over the stars and not the stars over him. We have the power over them. A lot of people look, Friedrich Nietzsche also says, as long as you see the stars above your head, you lack the eye of knowledge. So what you're seeing out there is also within you, ultimately. It's like a clock for the body. It's like a guidance system.
So would you say that is the micro and the macro?
The micro and the macro. Yeah. This is a dome. What's within the dome? Light. all the electric fields that go in our brain and signals that wire up. Same thing, as we develop our nervous system, as we develop our knowledge of ourselves, as we grow more, we create new neural pathways in our brains. But those eating McDonald's and all that junk and stuff, and in watching the telly and, you know, still getting on with being numb and dumb, and not that I'm judging them, but that's how I was when I was not awake. I'm just as guilty of it as the next man. But the difference is, you know, now you have a responsibility, now that you're more conscious of what is going on. You have a responsibility in yourself to ultimately be an example for the rest of the world. So when people come across you, you're able to be that shining light. Doesn't, you know, you can plant seeds. It's not about going on a crusade. You can just plant seeds, because some people are not ready to be unplugged. And you can accept that. The main thing is that you're on the path, and that's the most important thing, ultimately. It's your path, and, you know, one has to look forward to their deaths, because they make us fear death like we're just finite beings. I always say we are eternal, infinite. We are eternal, infinite. It's a bit of a paradox, but it's a beautiful one.
Yeah, I like breaking the words down, but that's good.
Yeah. Gerald Massey, great scholar who studied ancient Egyptian mythology and written so many books, thick books. The Egyptians had no vicarious atonement, no imputed righteousness, no second-hand salvation. No initiate in the Osirian mysteries could possibly have rested his hope of reaching heaven on the Galilean line of glory. He was the more crucial way of Amenta, to tread with the guidance of the word, that step by step and act by act you must himself make true. Truth is there, it's within you. And that's what Freemasonry ultimately took from the ancient, Osirian schools, mystery schools. This is all ancient knowledge. It's just the elite keep it for themselves, and they use it to control the masses, where you can use this for yourself and break free.
Yeah, the dark side of it.
Yeah.
So with the Rosicrucianists and stuff, they were taking all this knowledge as well.
Yeah, but the Rosicrucians have a lot of good, really great knowledge. I mean, if you even study Rosicrucianism, you'll find a lot of very useful information, empowering information. Obviously, most people would never look there, but yeah, ultimately they took a lot of that as well. I mean, all these orders, they have it, you know. But this is why it works so well, because they know this is intrinsically ancestral and it's within us. We are the ancestors, each and every one of us. We are the embodiment of all the ancestors that came before, you know. So they know that this works on a subconscious level, and that's how they're able to control so many people. So this is part of getting this knowledge and integrating it into a wisdom that you can live free from all the programming. This is ultimately what we're here to do, get rid of programs that don't serve us, and get rid of that parasitic thinking mind that's constantly nagging you and putting you down to be depressed. And, you know, not to say negative experiences are bad, no, because they're there to help forge us. Suffering, there's something about suffering, I've had to suffer a lot before I became conscious anyway. So that suffering is a teacher, but you don't have to stay there. That's the difference. Yeah, learn from it, but you don't have to stay there. So psychological traits of the zodiac are within, as I've been saying. So all these symbols, it's a bit of a more modern spin on the symbology, but I thought I'll share it because it's quite nice. I'm a Sagittarius. I like to be aimed. That's why you've always got the archer. But don't we all like to be aimed? at something in life. You don't have to be a Sagittarius to be a Sagittarius. Does that make sense? Yeah. You can adopt traits that are positive into your life. These are all teachers. All these 12 zodiacal signs are all teachers. They don't have to be, oh, I'm just this sign, so therefore, and I see a lot of people get trapped within the whole birth chart. I'm this, I'm that, and then that's them, done. They're finished, they've done their work, they know themselves, and they've had their birth chart done, and they think that's it. It's like, well, don't you want to develop on that? Don't you want to add to that? Don't you want to become a wheel, not just one sign on that wheel? Don't you want to become whole? Isn't that what we're here to do? Isn't that what individuation is about? So yeah, take the Aries fire. Sometimes we need a bit of fire to get stuff done. The Taurus, the bull, you need to charge sometimes at things. Gemini, we need to be dual. We need to see we need to see different perspectives. We need to have two faces sometimes, recognize there's two sides to us. There's a good nature and an evil nature. Because all that evil we see in the world, we recognize it. Why? Because we are capable of it also. But the difference is that you do not partake in it. And that's what makes the individual different and more moral and more pure, more beautiful and divine. Because all this dark stuff that's going on in the world is ultimately an adversary to us, as a reflection for you to say, no thanks, I don't like that reflection, I'm not going to partake in it. I can if I wanted to, isn't that free choice? But I'm not going to, because I can see it's not for my soul. I'm saving it this time. I'm ascending it this time. So Santos Bonacci, his graphic artist, did this beautiful rendition of the zodiac of the body and how it represents. It's also represented in the physiological sense also. So at the top you have Aries, then you have the throat, which is the neck, shoulders, which is Gemini, 2 shoulders. Extended to 2 arms. Right, and so on. Cancer, the heart. Funny how a crab almost looks like a heart also. If you look at it, it has a sort of a heart shape. And it goes on. And this is worth studying. Ines Perry and Dr. George W. Carey, the Zodiac Salts of Salvation, talks about the 12 mineral salts we all have to have in our bodies to have healthy bodies functioning in its optimum, preserving our youth, and our vitality. These minerals are really important, which I'm sure Jay will also talk about because it's in the alkaline part of the alkalinity. It's all about minerals. So, feet, fishes. They look like fishes, don't they? If you kind of see them. They're a bit aquatic. We use our feet when we swim, don't we? So it's all there. Pisces. I've kind of skipped the rest, but you get it. Like Sagittarius, hips. Always on a horse, the centaur. It's all about the hips. So, these things are worth noting as well, because the 12 is everywhere.
Would that tie into sort of the whole sort of chakra sort of system, or?
Well, the chakras are 7, but that ties into the 7 planets, the 7 luminaries that are used in the zodiac.
Okay.
So, the chakras refer to the planets.
Okay.
So, you have, Saturn, I think is the 3rd eye. I can't remember all of them from the top of my head, but they're all linked. Yeah, it's all linked. 7 and the 12, they're all there. So the 12 cranial nerves. We have 12 cranial nerves in our brains. Why 12? It's even is it coincidence or what? How many signs do we have to see before we actually see there is intelligent design in the universe, in all creation? So you have the olfactory, the optic, the oculomotor nerve, the tracheal nerve, all these parts of the brain are nerves that functions, that spread out. They're like main wires in a computer that operates the different functions in our bodies. So it's there within our bodies also, that number 12. So zodiac right there, through those nerves, through our nervous system. That's why it's so important to heal our nervous systems from all the chemtrails, from all the poisons we're constantly being bombarded with on a daily. Why? Because they don't want you to truly, truly awaken, to rise into your power, to become Christ-like, to become Christic, crystal, in clear mind, body, heart. Be the embodiment of what Christ was about. They don't want you to be Christ. They want you to go look for a savior outside yourself so you don't save yourself. The irony, right? Always looking for a savior figure, and they put that in all the political figures, in the narratives that they feed the people, because they're always looking outside for a savior, when the only one that can save you is you. So, yeah, the 12 cranial nerves. I thought I'll kind of like wrap it up with this beautiful meme that someone created. I don't know who it was, but credit goes to them, whoever did it. So you can see the numbers at the bottom there. And it starts from March, which is Aries. And what do you have? Yeah, that's Peter on the far left. And then it goes throughout the rest of the characters. Obviously, it's a bit more patriarchal, but the Roman pantheon had a lot more goddesses in there. But again, it's the same thing. It's just packaged, wrapped different ways. So this is what my presentation was about, just to kind of introduce the idea to you. There's a lot more. I can go a lot more deeper into this, but I thought today would be a good opportunity just to give you an overriding arc of the knowledge. When you get into it deeper, you can find out about the salts. You can use psychology as a tool to navigate with astrology. Those two go hand in hand. You can't do one without the other, because modern psychology is also a bit corrupt here and there. It might be misleading if you get too lost in it. To become simple is really the most difficult thing to do, because we're always lost in our complexities. And chaos, order out of chaos, as they say in the dollar bill, right? Why? Because they like to keep us in chaos. But to become simple is one of the most beautiful things. And that's the beauty of silencing the mind, getting to a point where the talking and the chatter stops. I want to reach a point where I don't need to think. I'm feeling my way through life, because I trust everything. I trust, if I'm the creator, I trust that I'm going to use my imagination to create the reality I want and the result I want in expectation of it, because the divine's already in me. And if I act without any self-importance, because the ego wants to be important, then I'm able to serve others, not just myself, and be of use to whoever I can be as well, from a place of love, from a place of heart. Ultimately serving the divine, being all vessels, we're all children of this infinite beauty. And hope that that's something that you can all take away and reflect on. So thank you. Thank you.
I know the time will come when we welcome everyone, yeah. Even the young and the old. We're here to soothe your